10 minutes here on Carlton, the last in the current series of Cold Feet. First, London Tonight, presented by Emma Walden.
Good evening. We start with the latest reaction in the capital to the devastating events across the Atlantic. Londoners were told today it's business as usual, but that defiant message came as a massive security view swung into action in a bid to minimise the chance of a similar terrorist attack happening here. Political correspondent Simon Harris reports.
City commuters were talking or thinking of little else on their way to work. They were greeted by the so-called Ring of Steel, itself a legacy of past terrorist activity. Today, all the checkpoints were manned. At Canary Wharf, the normal security checks were even more in evidence. This is a place where the look alone begs comparison with Manhattan, but more than that, many businesses in these towers have transatlantic links.
London and New York are like sister cities, and the financial institutions will have a headquarters in one and a major branch in the other. And people commute backwards and forwards. That's why we think perhaps a lot of Londoners will have lost their lives. I'd be very surprised if it isn't dozens, and it may even be in hundreds.
Politicians and police chiefs appealed for calm, arguing the threat from Irish terrorists has left London well prepared. Nevertheless, an extra 1,000 police officers were on duty, visibly.
The idea is to try and say to people, you're safe, the government is in control, and everything should revert to business as normal as soon as possible.
The police, if not exactly edgy, were certainly quick to respond to calls today. While they raised their profile and business bosses consulted security experts, terrorism analysts pondered the risk facing London.
Could there be a similar threat to London? Yes, it's possible, but I would have thought that whilst there may be a longer-term threat, I would have thought that this particular terrorist operation is probably over.
Perhaps the most obvious change in central London in the last 24 hours has been in the skies. The familiar constant stream of airliners passing overhead has vanished. Passenger planes have been ordered to give central London a wide berth, but the no-fly zone has its casualties. London City Airport is shut and 7,000 passengers a day are grounded. Airport bosses say the government's reaction is unsustainable.
To actually not overfly this huge capital city of ours at all, it would seriously reduce the capacity of all of the airports around London and pose some major challenges for the UK economy if that were to happen. How do you actually, against a terrorist threat, police a no-fly zone? Because it's very difficult to put fences in the sky.
Not surprisingly, the most visible increased security in London is at buildings used by American citizens, private guards outside this American school, and police at the Ambassador's mansion. In Regent's Park, this is Simon Harris for London Tonight.
While security chiefs try to reassure the capital's population and workforce, there are of course many people in London already directly touched by yesterday's horrific events. Outside the US Embassy, a steady stream of well-wishers have been leaving flowers and messages of condolence. Christopher Peacock reports.
He brings flowers with him to the American Embassy in memory of two friends he fears are lost in the US terror attacks.
I knew two people in the World Trade Center, and I got an email this morning that they're pretty sure that they've perished.
As planes were on a suicide course for the World Trade Center in New York, a city broker on the phone from his office at London Bridge was talking to a colleague who works at the center when a plane tore into one of the twin towers.
Just said, I think there's an earthquake, and then he said there's smoke billowing from the building, and he screamed, I'm going to have to leave the building now. We're all evacuating.
Half an hour's silence went by before it became clear Peter Bartlett's colleague was alive. The Stars and Stripes flew at half-mast over the embassy rooftop as Americans mourned their dead and Londoners struggled to take in the enormity of terror attacks in major cities that could have claimed 10,000 lives. Former air stewardess Annie Kersey lit candles and left flowers for the cabin crews who perished in the hijacked planes.
I should imagine people were praying. They possibly knew as the aircraft started to ascend, descend, that there was no hope, and people were clinging to each other praying.
As the Prime Minister kept London on a state of high alert, an increased police presence maintained vigil outside the embassy. In a corner of Grosvenor Square, people on their way to work left flowers, a way of saying this is everyone's tragedy.
It could have been London and it could have been Paris, it could have been any country in Europe. This happens to be America, but this is something that has to be stamped out.
As the Mayor of London warns that many from the capital may have lost their lives, prayer services have been held at city churches. This one at All Hallows by the Tower, where colleagues in London remember 1,500 insurance workers who were feared dead in the rubble of the World Trade Center.
I do hope he and his family are okay, but I haven't heard a thing in this past 24 hours.
Books of condolence are being opened, and out of this story of overwhelming pain and sadness has come some hope.
We had a family stop in yesterday at the church who said their daughter works at the World Trade Center, and she just felt for sure that she had been killed, and she came to cry and to pray and to seek counsel from the pastors. And even while we were meeting with her, she got a phone call on her mobile that her daughter was alive.
The American ambassador has thanked Londoners for their messages of support. Some 60 years ago, he recalled, Britons in London had stood resolute under the hammer blow delivered from the sky and said, "We can take it." The ambassador says he's confident the people of his nation have the same grit to see them through. In central London, this is Christopher Peacock for London Tonight.
And tonight, the US Church in central London held a special service. Americans either visiting or living in the capital attended the church in Tottenham Court Road, where they sought comfort from others also waiting for news on friends and family. Those services will continue tomorrow. And for anyone concerned about relatives or colleagues in America, the Foreign Office has issued an emergency number. It's 020 7008 0000. That's 020 7008 0000. One of America's first defence mechanisms was to ground all aircraft in the US and close its airspace indefinitely. That quite natural reflex has left thousands of passengers stranded at London's airports. Phil Bales reports.
Quieter than Christmas Day. Normally teeming with transatlantic passengers, the check-in desks for American and Canadian destinations are deserted. On the tarmac, the planes are going nowhere, stranded in the wrong place in the world, like American tourists and business travellers who last night had nowhere to go.
We had about 2,000 people here that we had to find hotel beds for at short notice, and we had tremendous cooperation from the hoteliers, and we even had local residents ring up to say, can we help you out? So I mean, a tremendous community spirit. I'm very grateful for that.
Some, though, like this disabled passenger, arrived in the middle of the night. She slept in Terminal 3 in a wheelchair.
To get taxis and go to hotels is very disruptive anyway, so we decided to stay here without any interviews with the airline. We just chose to stay here.
Heathrow is on full alert. The Prime Minister ordered greater security after aircraft were banned from flying over central London. As well as the cancellation of all flights to the States and Canada, some to Tel Aviv were suspended too. And this unprecedented sight of the sky over London in recent years, one completely empty of aircraft after the capital was declared a no-fly zone, caused additional problems. Flights coming into Heathrow were delayed because they had to go a longer way round. This is Phil Bales for London Tonight.
And passengers at Gatwick are suffering similar problems tonight. A total of 28 arriving and 24 departing transatlantic flights have been cancelled. Meanwhile, City Airport will remain completely closed for the next 24 hours. And that's all from us for now. We'll be back during GMTV. Good night.